Okay, so we have talked about Trump and we've talked about J.D. Vance. So I thought it was only fair that I would give you a glimpse into how I was shaped. I have an older brother and sister. My sister is 11 years older than me, although she likes to say she's the younger child. But she got pregnant and married when she was 16. So I was six when her daughter was born and when she moved out. And then my brother was 8.5 years older, and he moved out when I was around 9 years old. And they grew up together, and I was pretty much an only child. We're just now really developing a relationship, getting to know each other. And growing up, my dad worked in a factory which closed down when I was a toddler. And then he did a lot of odd jobs, trying not to lose our home and provide us, with food and a life. And he often lived and worked out of state to earn money, and then would just come home on the weekends. And just before my fifth grade year, he was recalled to the factory in Springfield, Ohio, where I graduated high school. And honestly, it wasn't good when my mom and dad lived in the same house. They both grew up with violent alcoholic fathers, and there was a lot of physical and emotional and verbal abuse between the two of them. And I worked really hard so that my mom would see me. But she was so deep in her own pain that, it wasn't possible for her then, and my dad was my biggest cheerleader. And I only saw one side of the abuse. I saw my mom abusing my dad, and I saw my dad doting on my mom. But what I didn't realize is that because my dad had seen his father abuse his mother in front of them, he chose not to abuse my mother in front of me, which didn't mean it wasn't happening. And so, only seeing one side of that, I chose sides and I got involved in grown up business. And in the process, I lost my mom, which was really sad because up until that point, we had been really close. And we still lived in the same house. My parents were still married, but I really closed myself and my heart off to her. She was pretty much dead to me, and I used to beg my dad to divorce her because I said, you deserve better. You deserve to be treated better. And that really laid the foundation for what I thought love was. And there was a part of me that feared love because I wanted nothing, like this. And my senior year in high school, I had a group of friends that had really been my group of friends since I moved to Ohio. But they woke up one day and they told me, "Yeah, you get everything." I was valedictorian, sports captain of my sports team, first chair trombone, and all the guys talked to me, and I was friendly, so I had a lot of friends. And they said they didn't want to hang out with me anymore. And it was devastating. I worked really hard so that my mom would see me, and now I was being told I was too good, and I was abandoned by people that I thought loved me. So again, this kind of shaped how I view people and relationships. And I went to the Air Force Academy straight out of high school, and I was commissioned as an officer in the Air Force in 2000. And I was security forces or military police. So I really saw the worst of people, the domestic violence, the sexual assaults, the suicides. And our culture within our career field was also super toxic. We really ate our young and we were abusive to each other. We had high deployment rates, high divorce rates, high suicide rates. Um, I did two tours in Iraq, but it was really my time in Sierra Leone that really cracked me open. Sierra Leone is in West Africa, for those of you who don't know, and I was there during Ebola. I was also there for their presidential election and the murder of the head of their military. And he was a man that I worked really closely with for my first year and a half because I was the senior defense official and someone that I had really a lot of respect for. And typical election, the opposing party points to the corruption in the ruling party, which is exactly what they're going to do when they get into office. But that's how they get themselves elected. Again, let's tear the other party down so that we can look better instead of, standing on our own merits. And my friend was called to Parliament to testify about the corruption in the defense contracts, and before he could testify, they sent thugs into his home in the middle of the night and they murdered him. And at this point, I was an intelligence officer, so I knew everyone involved. I worked with them, and I was angry and I was sad. How could you claim to love someone, to respect someone, and then have them murdered for power and money? But this seems to be a dominant story of the world today. We value power and money over love and loyalty. Maybe we confuse the two. We think that power and money mean love and loyalty, but they don't. And there's still a part of me that really struggles to trust people, that struggles to receive love, because opening my heart means opening it to the painful parts too. You can't pick and choose what your heart gets to feel when it's open. And when you've seen the worst that people can do and the things they do to each other, you realize that what we're capable of, and that we're all capable of these atrocities in the right environment or the wrong environment. And we're all capable of love. We are capable of doing better when we know better. We're all shaped from where we come from, and that includes me. And my story is one of striving, of wanting to be seen, to be heard, to be my own person, of working hard to earn love in a world that felt too broken to offer it freely and without conditions. And I've seen pain up close in families, in war zones, and systems designed to protect but often really just cause more harm. I've also seen courage and love and people rising, sometimes barely, but often because someone believed in them, because someone supported them. And the more I've shared my story, the more I realize this: we all carry something. And often it has a very similar flavor to it, looking for love and belonging, and to know that we have a place and that we're safe. There's pain and there's glory and there's secrets and there's survival, and if we're willing to look at it, really look at it, we begin to choose differently. We can create something different. And so the questions that I want to ask you today is again, what shaped you when you were young? Like, who did you try to become? What did you try to do in order to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel seen? Whose love did you long for? And what did you sacrifice to get it? What parts of yourself did you sacrifice to get it? And were you told, you were too much or not enough, or both at the same time? And what parts of your story still ask for healing? What kind of world are you helping to shape now, with your choices, with your voice, with your love? You don't have to be a public figure, a politician, a veteran to have a powerful story. Your life has taught you something. And maybe it's time to share it. Maybe it's time to explore it. So drop a comment down below. What part of your story still lives in you? What helped you to survive, that maybe isn't needed now? And what do you want to do with that strength now? Because healing doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we're brave enough to be seen, when we're brave enough to love, when we're brave enough to open our hearts to feel it all. And so today, again, I'm going to keep coming back to this. I want you to choose love. I want America to choose love, and I want us to move past our stories and into creating what we want in life.